Hello and welcome everybody to the first ever episode, or the pilot episode, so to speak, of the TriPod, aka TriPod, aka Pod, aka Pod times Pod times Pod, aka Pod, aka uh, the Pod to the power of 3, aka Pod cubed. And I am your host, Stan, aka Stan to the power of 3, aka Stanimation, aka Nastaniel, aka, well, Tristan. Anyway, so yes, I have decided that I will be making my first ever attempt at a podcast where I will be reviewing film, TV, well, mostly film, and discussing anything else related to pop culture or the entertainment business, which I am actually quite looking forward to. This is just an excuse for me to talk to, well, I suppose anyone about the things that interest me, because in all honesty, I don't think there is anyone in my immediate life that has nearly not even near the amount of interest in the things that I find interesting, at least not interested enough that they would want to host a podcast with me. So, yes, it is just me, myself, and you, the audience, which is probably going to be the one guy in Eastern Europe that I am paying to listen to this, so that I have a concurrent viewer or listener, and, probably my mother. Um, anyway, thank you for whoever is joining. Today on this episode, I will be reviewing The Beekeeper starring Jason Statham. But before that, just a little bit of a breakdown. I have a YouTube channel called Stan, and another YouTube channel called Stanimation for animation purposes and stuff that I want to create. And then Stan, which is a regular channel where I just want to kind of just mess around, and as the podcast name suggests, tripod obviously being a pun to just kind of try things. I suppose I am just trying a podcast. And yeah, also I've got a lot of thoughts on a lot of movies and a lot of film and entertainment, and I never have anyone to talk to about it. I think a part of the reason that I've decided to start this as well is because I mostly never give anyone a chance to respond to any of the opinions I have of about any of the things that I am so passionately interested in. Well, i.e., movies such as The Beekeeper, which is a nothing movie, but I think in honor of the fact that my first and only ever movie review that I posted on YouTube was The Meg, the first one, starring Jason Statham, um, which I think is like a 25-minute video that I took in a parking lot, where I recorded myself immediately after watching the movie Sleep Deprived, might I add. And I had to cut that down from about an hour of me, speaking in my car about the Meg, and cut it down to like a 25-minute video. And I had quite a bit of fun. So I thought I would try something a little bit in the longer format, audio only, so you don't have to look at my stupid face. And yeah, but instead just listen to my stupid opinions. So the way I kind of want to structure these podcasts, the reason I am doing a pilot episode, so to speak, is to just kind of test it out, see how I want to approach these. And I think I've already got a structure planned, which would most likely be starting off maybe with some relevant news or topics, regarding upcoming films or the film industry, things that just kind of interest me, and then doing the review of the movie of the week. Sometimes it might be more than once a week, sometimes it might be less, who knows. At this point, it is just an additional outlet because I love going to the cinema. And yeah, so it will be the movie review in the middle, and at the end, I will probably add some segments. I think thus far that segment will be called Side Tangent, yes, which is another pun on my name, because we all know this has to be the most self-centered thing one could possibly do, which is sitting alone in your apartment, recording yourself, and then listening back to yourself, cutting it down to a version that you think would be entertaining to people, and then posting it online. But anyway, so the reason I'm also doing this, or I've got absolutely no qualification or anything credited to my name to be able to do this other than the fact that I love cinema. I studied a year in animation, and that's about it. I've been an extra on some sets. I have starred in some commercials, and I have posted YouTube videos about my opinions with less than 50 views, which I think is more than enough credit, I think. More than enough stacking the odds in ever so in my favor that I should be doing this. But in all seriousness, I've loved cinema since I was a kid. I mean, going to the cinema is literally part of my monthly budget, which I've worked in ever since I started earning a paycheck, which wasn't a lot, and I would waste a lot of it on going to the movies, which is rather expensive. Which is funny. Growing up, going to the cinema was always made out to be this extremely expensive outing by my parents, especially my mother, which I look back on the pricing or the costing that it was when I was a kid. It wasn't that expensive, which either means I have a completely skewed view of how expensive it was for the time, but I'm pretty sure adjusted for inflation, it wasn't that expensive. So the only other logical outcome on that equation is that we were probably a bit more poor than I recall. So yeah, I think ever since I had a paycheck or started earning a paycheck, I thought I would indulge in cinema. Because to me, going to the cinema, just kind of switching off and watching it inside a theater is everything to me. Okay, not everything. At this point, it's only worth me spending some money, and now I'm recording on a shitty laptop with a shitty mic that is literally stationed on top of my washing basket, laundry basket, which is stacked on top of my PC box. And no, this is not a PC box connected to anything that is recording right now. It's just a glorified stand for the mic right now. So we're really, and this is dirty laundry, by the way. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here in terms of quality. But this is just something I'm doing for fun as an additional outlet and a creative outlet maybe, and hopefully just to get people's opinions on films that I enjoy watching. It might be good films, it might be bad films, who knows? So I don't really have any news to share in terms of this week's episode, which I'm going to title episode 0, by the way, because I don't think this will ever air. If it does, I mean, I'll probably listen back to it and cringe really hard, and maybe I'll post it someday and you guys can cringe with me. If not listening to this as a source of entertainment, hopefully listening to this as a source to make fun of me, which, if that ups engagement on wherever I post this, fantastic. Okay, so before I get into the movie of the week, upcoming reviews that I will most likely be doing will be The Monkey Man, starring Dave Patel, which is something I kind of look forward to watching, which, kind of looking at the movie slates that I've got going for the first and the second movie that I'm watching, so The Beekeeper and The Monkey Man, and the previous film that I reviewed being The Meg. This is very much in line with middle-aged dad energy, which, I can't say is the energy I'm going for, but at the same time, maybe that is a bit more suitable. Because I feel like every other dad would be watching these movies. But hey, to me it's just a source of entertainment, so what can I say? Alright, so the movie of the week, I actually just came from the cinema, a screening on a Wednesday evening. That is me just taking a sip of my tea. Can't have coffee because I need to go sleep soon, but we're first recording this stupid little experiment of mine. So, the middle-aged dad energy having some chamomile tea. I'm pretty sure that's a good mix. All right. So, The Beekeeper, starring Jason Statham, directed by David Ayer, who also directed films such as, I believe, End of Watch, and then the really shitty Suicide Squad, which David Ayer swears the director cut is so much better, which I kind of feel for the guy. DC was a mess back then. And also a very famously Bright Netflix movie where a African American Will Smith is racist towards a white, what's his name, Joel Edgerton, I think was his name, doing Blueface, which is quite, ironic. I know that's probably part of the theme. I mean, I can barely remember that movie. I can barely remember anything Will Smith did before he slapped Chris Rock. So I was actually quite fascinated to find out that David Ayer actually wrote Training Day and was part of the team that wrote the first ever Fast and the Furious. So he's partially responsible for, the millions of Fast and the Furious movies coming out and Vin Diesel's weird power trip. Anyway. Okay, so The Beekeeper, directed by David Ayer, starring Jason Statham and a few other people, but let's be honest, this is a Jason Statham movie. Obviously, Josh Hutcherson making an appearance, as well as Jeremy Irons, which we'll touch on later. The movie actually is doing quite well with a budget of around 40 million. I think I read somewhere that it was closer to $34 million. The total box office as of the latest figures that I'm seeing is $152.7 million worldwide, that's a pretty good return on investment. I'm not gonna lie, that's doing pretty well. And for something that I thought would kind of go under the radar, because it kind of looks like one of those straight to streaming generic action movies, so to speak, which in the past would have probably been direct to DVD, even on Rotten Tomatoes, it's gotten quite good reviews, 71% on the tomato meter, and a 92% audience score. People are really liking this. But to be fair, if you're a Jason Statham fan, you can kind of see, that people would opt for something like this. Very straightforward, easy to digest, hour and 45-minute movie. I think, 105 minutes runtime. Alright, so now for the synopsis of the movie. I'm not going to read a synopsis. I did just read one, but that sounds way too robotic. Basically, the plot follows Jason Statham, the beekeeper. Character name, I think, Adam Clay. Man, I hope I've got that right. Who is a literal beekeeper who is keeping bees on the property of a lovely elderly lady on her estate. And essentially she gets scammed out of a lot of money by some very questionably dressed, I suppose Gen Z douchebags. I don't know. Whatever. The point is, by some very villainy, almost, yeah. So the plot follows Jason Statham, a literal beekeeper, well, keeping bees, on some old lady's farm where he is renting from. A very lovely old lady, might I add, who then gets scammed out of all of her money, which is tied into all of her savings and also a charity which she is the director of a children's charity. And they scam her out of a lot of money using classic phishing with a PH. And it's basically his quest for vengeance after he finds the lovely old lady dead in her house after the scam takes place, as she committed suicide. So just an added note there that this movie is R-rated, and yeah, I'll touch on that in a bit. So generally, I think a lot of people do spoiler-free reviews and then spoiler reviews, but given the fact that this movie has been out for quite a while, I think I'm just gonna jump straight into spoilers. There's nothing too big to spoil from. Well, at least at first I thought there wasn't for a Jason Statham movie such as this. But there's some things that could be, I suppose, spoiler heavy, or lean towards being quite spoilery. Spoilery, that's a word, right? The point is, I'm not going to do that for this movie. I think for certain movies, like comic book movies, which I'm a big fan of, I will try to do a spoiler-free review and a spoiler review. As well, how my rating system works, I will get to that at the end of this review. So, let's just get straight into this. Alright, so the movie starts with us being introduced to Jason Statham's character keeping bees. He's getting rid of some hornets in this lady's on this lady's farm in some, I want to say, warehouse area, and he then gets approached by her, who says thank you for the work that he had just done, and she invites him over for supper in that evening, and he refers to her as the only person that's ever taken care of him. The only thing I will say about that introduction is it's quite a cool scene, the way that they show how he kills the hornets by using like one of those is it a strobe light? I don't know what you call it, fluorescent lights, and he puts them like in a bag and then just kind of cracks the fluorescent tube light, and then uses a electricity, to electrocute the hornets inside the bag, which is pretty cool. I don't know if that actually works that way, and we'll never know. I'm not gonna look it up, but it was pretty cool. Cool little indication of character in that moment, with like his resilience and like kind of figuring out ways to do things quite efficiently, which plays out throughout the film. But what is quite jarring is hearing Jason Statham talk in this movie, because as soon as he opens his mouth, you can hear that he is trying to do an American accent, but he loses it quite a bit throughout this movie, and accents are a bit of a thing in this movie, which I'm going to address a little bit later. But yeah, he kind of goes in and out of this American accent back into his regular Jason Statham British accent, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand why they didn't just make his character British. If you're gonna get Jason Statham, why are you gonna bother trying to make him American? That makes no sense to me. His lines are so much better delivered if he just does it in his regular old Jason Statham accent, which is obviously British. It was such an odd directional choice. They do address it. So the lady where he is renting from and whose bees he is keeping, or he's keeping his own bees, but on her farm, he obviously helped kind of rejuvenate the crops on her land because of the bees playing an important role in the agriculture, etc., etc. Yada, 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 not important to the entirety of the plot. Sure, there's some themes there, but we're not going to get into that. The lady that then commits suicide because of these people scamming her out of her money. Wait, where was I going with that? The lady... Where was I going? Oh, when he finds her dead in her house, there is another woman that is in the house that points a gun at him and tells him to freeze, and whatever, she cuffs him. You see it's an FBI agent, which turns out to be the lady he is renting from's daughter, which is like quite a weird tangent that she showed up, conveniently at this time. But yeah, at one point while they are sitting the next morning and having like a coffee together, she does mention his British accent coming out, and he said he was born there. So I feel like that's a scene that they maybe added after Jason Statham probably told them that this American accent's not working for him. I hope that's true. I don't know if that is true, but I'm going to decide that is true, and we are just going with that. That is the absolute truth. No one can change my mind. To me, either Jason Statham said that this is not working for him, they need to add a scene so that he can still have his British accent slip through, or David Ayer was like, hey man, I think we need to do some reshoots, because maybe that's what got it up from 34 million budget back up to 40. Because they were just like, listen, we need to add a line where we acknowledge the fact that your American accent disappears throughout the film. Okay, enough side tangents about his stupid accent. So, the first problem I think I have with this movie is there is no exploration about this lady that commits suicide as to why she would commit suicide. If there was, it kind of went over my head. I was distracted by the copious amount of food that I snuck into the cinema while watching this. But it's such an odd choice to just have this lady commit suicide because all of her money was scammed, from her. It was taken from her, was stolen. I get it. I get that that's a devastating thing to happen. Even the children's charity money being stolen, which was like $2 million. But this woman raised two children, one being the FBI agent woman, and I only know Jason Statham's name in this movie, if I'm being honest with you, and then her son, who was ex-military, who died in combat. So it's like such a weird thing. I mean, they give some indication that her daughter suffers from some sort of depression because she's got a bit of an alcohol problem. It could just be alcohol, like, because she's dealing with her mother's death. But that's like the first issue I found with this movie, which was such a strange choice because there's no like, I don't think they did enough to kind of show that she was that devastated that she pulled the trigger. It just felt a bit out of place and out of character because this lady seemed sweet. She seemed calm. She's in the kind of like living secluded. And I mean, they give some indication that, turning old makes you feel alone. So maybe that was kind of where they were trying to touch on that theme and kind of get some motivation as to why it got too much for her, because even her daughter said that she doesn't get around there often enough. So maybe that is, I mean, I can imagine that it is pretty lonely for the older people out there, but it was just a strange take, but I think an interesting take nonetheless. And then her daughter, after finding her mother having committed suicide, had like barely a reaction to her mother being dead. And this is no knock on the actress. It could be the direction that they took her. Maybe it was to show that she was just hiding her emotions behind alcohol, so she didn't express crying or devastation when she saw her mother dead, or found her mother dead, and instead she was trying to act tough, and that's why she started drinking. But that, I think I'm doing a little bit of extra legwork for the screenwriters there by kind of jumping to that conclusion. If that is the direction they wanted to take, great. If anyone knows that that's the direction they wanted to take, please let me know. But like, yeah, that just seemed a bit weird. I think the alcoholism, that kind of gave you an indication that she was struggling, and she was quite determined to sort this whole thing out. But then she would be cracking jokes in between as well, so that was just kind of confusing. It's like, I suppose, that's coming from me who deals with death by coping through humor, but it just felt a bit off in tone. But let's move on from there. So the agency, or the company that steals money from people that are secluded and alone through scamming, man, what an annoying bunch of pricks. They did great casting these people. They did a great job with the way that they displayed them, because it gave this like Wolf of Wall Street vibe, where it's like a room full of people, young people, I might add, on computers in a call center, phoning people and scamming them out of their money, with usually one prick standing in the middle doing that, typical Wolf of Wall Street thing, where they are hyping up the rest of the team by showing them how it's done with the microphone and those stupid Bluetooth earpieces that for some reason is still a thing. I thought they'd die out in the 2000s, or I think it was it was in the 2000s. Man, that should have ended there. But anyway, and they're all dressed in like stupid suits and look like they've just been doing cocaine, and they've all got that Wolf of Wall Street closing a deal attitude, where everyone's like surrounded around the phone as they make the call. Instead, it's just a room full of people literally sucking their dick as they're doing this, which is, I must say, just made me hate them more. So I think that was a job well done. I think that was a great choice, presenting them as these like Wolf of Wall Street type characters, but not in a glorified sense, instead of just a grimy, scummy, shitty sense. Like, they did not give these characters like redeeming qualities. They were just shitty people. And I think that was kind of a cool detail, because it's just like sometimes there's just shitty people, and no matter if those people have family at home or whatever, they're still shitty people, and not everyone deserves redeeming qualities, you know? Sometimes the people are just shitty. And I kind of like that. I'm not gonna lie. I do feel like they were presented a bit as to, like, tried a little bit hard to make them seem like Gen Zers, but I get it. I get it. We needed to have like a clear cut difference in generation, I suppose, to have that juxtaposition, which I did appreciate. Although the way that the guy scammed her was just, do people still fall for phishing scams? I don't know. It felt like this was supposed to. Oh, I did read, I think on IMDb, that this film was supposed to be set in the year 2003, which makes a bit more sense, because that's when people were wearing all these stupid little earpiece things and scamming people via phone calls. So, maybe that kind of makes sense, but it still worked. I'm not gonna lie, because I do think people still fall for it. I mean, I've recently been scammed out of 6K for my camera, so it happens to the best of us. But also, I'm a fucking idiot. So I mean, I'm recording a podcast with my microphone on my laundry. I'm not the smartest, or the sharpest pencil in the tool shed, whatever that expression is. Anyway, let's get back on track. So yeah, I think they did the villains well, and I think something I do need to give this film credit for is that I don't think the trailer gave a lot away. I only saw one trailer for this, and I saw it in cinema, and I thought in the trailer they gave everything away, because they were already showing us how he's showing up to this company that scammed the woman out, and how he burns it down and he beats the shit out of everyone. And I'm like, why are you already showing how he shows up to the main company at the end? And I did not know, who all the actors were that were going to star in this movie. It's kind of like one of those trailers that flew by while you're in conversation with whomever you're watching a film with, as you wait for the film to start. Because yes, we talk during the trailers because we are rude. So it kind of took me by surprise when that was like the literal first action set piece. Is him showing up to the exact company and the exact building that scammed this woman out of her money. He shows up with 2 canisters of fuel. He literally finds them so quickly, and he goes in, burns the place down, absolutely destroys the security guards, who are not even the people scamming. They're just the people protecting the scammers, I suppose. They deserve some ass kicking. But he absolutely demolishes them. No gun, just hand-to-hand combat, disarming them. And, I think he ends up killing them, because there's 4 bodies that were left in the aftermath of the burn, 4 victims, and I'm pretty sure they were all security guards. And the scammers kind of got off easy, at least, save for one. And just as to what Jason Statham's character is he is a beekeeper in the literal sense, but he is also a beekeeper, which is a program of people that were developed or started outside of the system. So outside of the CIA, FBI, whatever other intelligence agencies or government agencies there were, whose sole purpose is to protect the hive being the system, and keep the system safe, everyone in the system safe. So kind of having that little literal balance between them, the hive, or the beekeepers, sorry, and the hive being the public and the population, which I thought was, it's kind of clever, because it's the same way how, bees, without bees we're fucked, because without bees we don't have any agriculture, and without agriculture we don't have, we're fucked. So I do kind of like that, and I like that it's this ongoing relationship between the two entities, which they played on that pretty well. I mean, some of the stuff was a bit on the nose, the bee jokes, but I kind of like it. And I kind of like the fact that he literally turned into a beekeeper, because it does not... I thought at first it's something that they don't literally do. However, there was a beekeeper that he fought. And again, I'm not going to go through the plot beat by beat. This is stuff that you guys can obviously watch on your own. But I think if you're listening to a spoiler review, you obviously know what I'm referring to. So I'm not going to explain the entire movie. But at one point, he is fighting a woman that is his replacement beekeeper because he's a retired beekeeper. And he beats the living shit out of her. He disposes of her really quickly. She was a bit like a cartoon character. Crazy hairstyle, comes in with this colorful fit and a literal like truck with a minigun on it. Like that was like comical in essence, because the rest of the movie, yeah, there's some comical stuff in it, but that felt like slightly out of place. But anyway, he beats the shit out of her, kills her, takes her finger, slices it off, and then gets to a lair, which I think used to be his lair, and she now resides there. But there was a bunch of beehives outside of this lair, and she had a book that was titled "How to Be a Beekeeper," which the other protagonist of the movie, which is the daughter of the woman that died, that now works for the FBI, kept and used as a reference to kind of figure out what Jason Statham's motives are and kind of how he functions. Which, if they are a society of beekeepers is like the system outside of the government, is it like a requirement that they also literally keep bees? Is it like, because that's kind of like some Mr. Miyagi shit, you know what I mean? I hope that is the lore, because that's pretty cool. But anyway, we get sidetracked. So of the people that scammed the poor old lady, he finds the main guy, what was the character from Wolf of Wall Street's name? I cannot remember his name. What's the dude's name that the movie is based off of? Sell me a pen. What's his name? Jordan Belfort. There we go. I did not look that up. That was off the top of my head. The Jordan Belfort of this branch that scammed this poor old lady. I thought he was just getting away. I was like, why the fuck's Jason Statham just letting this guy go? And I think it was his intention, because he made everyone, which is pretty cool scene, when he walked in there, he told everyone to repeat after him and say that they will never scam they will never scam good people again, essentially, or whatever. They'll stop, and then they don't, and he beats the shit out of one of them, and then like, okay, and then they repeat after him. Pretty funny scene. So this guy, after the place burns down, phones his boss, which turns out to be Josh Hutcherson of Hunger Games fame. I don't know what else Josh Hutcherson has been in. Wasn't he like, what's that? There was a movie that I watched as a child. He played in Journey of this in the Center of the Earth with Dwayne the Rock Dwayne Johnson, right? And Zathura, right? RV. That's where I remember him from. Watched that movie quite a bit. Anyway, so Josh Hutcherson is like the young guy running all these branches of scam call centers that scam people out of their money. And he kind of uses like a intelligence program that locates all these secluded people that are easy targets, and then from there he starts scamming them. I know this is gonna sound weird, and maybe this is gonna start a perpetual thing of me talking about this, but I feel like his character was based off of Charlie Puth. I mean, Charlie Puth, whatever, because he's playing that like typical. I mean, I don't know how to say it. He's just got this douchey vibe on him. And now look, Charlie Puth seems like a talented young man. I'm saying young man. I'm sure he's older than me. He looks like a talented dude, and he made that "See You Again" song for Paul Walker. Of Paul Walker. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. Paul Walker died, but for Fast and Furious 7, right? It's a very good song. It's a great song, but I remember during lockdown, I used to actually spend a lot of time on Instagram Reels, and I still do, kind of just doom scrolling. And I remember seeing a lot of Charlie Puth during lockdown, where he was doing that stupid thing where he talks about his perfect pitch. Now look, I think that's great. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, that's actually really impressive. And I was like, I know a friend that's like sort of like that. That's hell of impressive. And my grandfather was like that. That's like an amazing talent to have. Like, this is great. Like, good for this guy. It's super impressive. And he did like one little song where he's figuring out the notes. And it was like one little interview, I think it was like Jimmy Fallon. But then that's like all he did. It's like he found his shtick. And now everything is just like, what if a song went like da 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 da, and then he starts making a song with that song. He's like, what if a song went like, and then he flips the light switch and he made that song. And it's catchy as shit, I know. But dude, You're not fucking a superhero. It's not a superpower. Like, it's a great talent. Don't get me wrong. It's a great talent. But if you have to say it over and over, it's really that great. If you got to remind people how impressive it is really that impressive? You know, it just kind of seems like you're scared that people forget that you can do that. It's like, dude, you're very talented. Just make good music. You don't have to make a short form video every 2 seconds about you doing a fucking perfect pitch thing and do it on every interview fucking ever. We get it, man. You're an F sharp when it's an F sharp. Hella impressive, bro. I don't know. He just kind of started having this little bit of a douchey vibe after that, and I mean, look, it's great marketing. It works. I'm shitting on someone while I am, like 40 minutes in to me just talking to myself. So, whatever. Anyways, Josh Hutcherson seems like he based his character off of Charlie Puth, which just made it so much better to see his comeuppance because I was just like, yeah, fuck that personality. It's like a cross between Charlie Puth and like Justin Timberlake from The Social Network, but he's also got Justin Timberlake's hair from NSYNC, which is just such a funny fucking. It's such a great amalgamation of characters. It's so good. Anyway, Josh Hutcherson ends up being the big bad. He's like the guy behind all of this. He's like a rich trust fund kid, and it just turns out this is the twist in the movie, is that Jason Statham finds the original guy that scammed the woman very early on in the movie, kills him. By the way, he found him on a bridge. Oh fuck! I'm even skipping the part where this guy phoned Josh Hutcherson, and Josh told him to take care of the problem. So he took some goons out to the lady he scammed house in hopes that they would find clues, and they just see Jason Statham in his pickup truck, and they start following him to his little shed or warehouse where he stays, and he keeps all his honey. So they shoot up a beehive, they crush his honey, and then Jason Statham like brutally murders everyone. And this is where you start seeing the R rating really shine through. But it's like, it's brutally murdered, but I don't think it's overdone. I think it was done quite tastefully, as tastefully as it can be, hanging a man and lodging a steel rod into a man's throat, and yeah, yeah, as tasteful as it can be. And then he just slices this dude's fingers off and then leaves him in like a wagon, and he just leaves. So he doesn't kill this guy again for the second time. I was like, well, then I was like, oh, he's really letting this guy go. And then this guy goes to like a border of a state. Well, I'm saying it's a border. It's just entering another state. I think he's going from Springfield to Boston. Yeah, Springfield to Boston. And he finds him by like one of those, what are those bridges that open? I don't fucking know. He finds him at a bridge. That's all you need to know. And a guy's on the phone with Josh Hutcherson, and then I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of a jump scare there. Jason Statham like randomly like punches the guy or grabs the guy while he's on the phone call. I did not see that coming. And the guy was explaining to Josh Hutcherson, this bald guy that was wearing a hat that did all of this to them, this beekeeper. And Jason Statham just like literally grabs him, beats him up a little bit, and then just ties him up with like a rope that you use to, with a what do you call it? A wrench, a jack? I don't know. I'm bilingual, by the way. English is not my first language, so I sometimes struggle to get the words, which I'm going to use as an excuse, even though I am perfectly fluent in English. But anyway, a ratchet, there we go. And he just ties this guy up, and then he takes his truck and he puts his truck in gear, essentially, and just like lets it drive off the bridge. And it just drags this dude with it. And it just drowns the dude, which is pretty funny. It's a good death. It's a good kill. And now he's hunting Josh Hutcherson, who Josh Hutcherson is being protected by Alfred. I mean, Jeremy Irons himself, which, man, what is he doing in a movie like this? What a great get. So he's being protected by Jeremy Irons, who works for a politician woman in a high place, who is Josh Hutcherson's mother. And Jeremy Irons used to be the director of the CIA, and he worked with the CIA for like 35 years or something. So he was tasked to protect Josh Hutcherson because he's a bit of a troublemaker, a bit of a druggie, and some issues here and there. And the twist in the film is that eventually you find out that Josh Hutcherson's mother is the president of the United States, which, even though you kind of see it coming, you can see she's a high politician, but the fact, like, as soon as you can tell that it's going to be the president of the United States, you're like, are they really going to do that? Are they really going to make it the president? It was, it's kind of a good, let's call it a surprise. Even though it was predictable, I still thought like they wouldn't actually go through with that. But yeah, he's the son of the president of the United States. And it turns out he's been using all these scam call center agencies to basically scam people, and that's what he used to help fund his mother's campaign, which basically got her elected. And I will say one thing that was quite funny is the daughter of the woman that was killed, that's the FBI agent, she at one point in the book, the Beekeeper book, reads a line about a type of bee that's called a Queen Slayer, which, what a name, which is usually a bee that ends up killing the queen if she fails to produce the right kind of male bees. And this is obviously foreshadowing for the fact that Jason Statham, as the Beekeeper, becomes the Queen Slayer. He is referenced as that. In all sincerity, that is a serious line that happens in the FBI headquarters or FBI offices at Boston at one point, because he is now going to take out the Queen Bee, which is the president of the United States. Thank you for doing that with the first ever female president, I suppose. He's gonna make her terrible. Fucking great. Anyway, is that he's gonna slay her because she produced the incorrect spawn, which is Charlie Puth. So, yeah, it's quite interesting because then he's just going all the way to the top, and he just starts, killing whoever is in his way. There's like a SEAL team, ex-military, brought in at one point to take care of him. He disposes of them quite viciously, quite quickly as well. It's pretty cool. I think the stuff that works for the movie is that I think David Ayer did a good job in knowing what this movie is and then just having it kind of relish in that fact and really thriving on the fact that it knows what it is. You want Jason Statham to be Jason Statham, you let him be Jason Statham, which is why I'm confused about the accent. But I mean, at one point, he shows up to the second building that he goes to infiltrate, which is one of these scam centers. It's their top branch, so to speak. And the SEAL team is inside, and the FBI is outside, because the SEAL team, which is a bunch of retired SEAL team members, so to speak, ex-military, keeping the FBI out because they've been hired by Jeremy Irons to protect the site, this asset, and to kill Jason Statham on site. So the FBI, who's not as involved with the corruption at this, from that point of view, is outside, and Jason Statham just walks up to them as they're trying to figure out where he could go in, and he tells them how he would go in, because they're also trying to find a way in because they're not allowed in. And I just found that really funny, because it's like, these guys are like, what the fuck? And they just carry on. And then he just beats the shit out of them. He doesn't kill any of them, but it's pretty cool. And they make quite a point to show you that he doesn't kill these people. He fucking really injures them. Same way like how Batman doesn't kill, but he like cripples a lot of people and causes life-altering injuries to a bunch of goons that were like tricked into joining gangs. But, or some dude robbing a bank because he needs money for his family and Batman just breaks his spine. Anyway, Jason Statham does something quite similar. He like really puts it on people, but they do make a point of it in indicating that he did not kill those people. He only kills the people that have in his eyes, directly done wrong, which is quite a fascinating thing to do, because I think a lot of movies kind of miss the opportunity of doing that. I think they skip over things like that, which is not, I would say, a super important detail, but it is a lapse of logic that you kind of have to just accept if they do not indicate like this guy's like moral code. Because generally, if a guy's a badass and he, like general Jason Statham movies or action movies of that type, people just kind of walk in and they just beat everyone up. And whether you're a cop, whether you're the bad guy, if you're getting in their way, they just kill those people. Whereas he had a very clear moral code, although questionable at some points, depending on who he let go and who he didn't. But I feel like if someone was trained, he would combat them. And if people seemed like civilians that were doing trashy things, he would just threaten them and he'd give them a chance to leave. And if they don't, then he accepts that they're going to face the consequences. At least that's how I read it. I think the movie builds up quite nicely as well, because he eventually infiltrates the president's like vacation residency, because her son and Jeremy Irons eventually goes there because they've run out of people to protect them, which I find great. I just thought that was kind of a neat thing to crescendo the movie in the third act. And not to bore you with the details, but he does break into the facility in questionable manners here and there. But, the movie takes liberties in those, but I think it's a fun romp. I kind of just enjoyed it. It was an easy watch. It was very brisk and quite well paced. Like, there's a lot of action. If you like a lot of action, there is a lot of action, and it's pretty good, decent choreography. Here and there, some weird camera movements, but pretty decent. Pretty decent overall. But he infiltrates the last place, and again, he just kind of walks into the place at one point and makes his presence known as he's set a bunch of booby traps, which is something that's quite concurrent throughout the movie. And I think they did a good job setting up that this guy's usually quite well prepared. And I really like that. It's those small little details in movies that I do enjoy, because you can tell that he's quite well prepared and resilient, and you see that consistently throughout the movie. I think his character is quite consistent, and props to David Ayer and the team surrounding him for making that clear. Yeah, I think it's probably the reason this movie is doing so well, is because even though it's something that some people don't pay that much attention to, I think when a character is inconsistent, we can tell, even if we don't know what's making us feel odd about a character. I think we pick up patterns. I mean, we are creatures of habit, so pattern recognition is something that comes naturally to all of us. We might not always know that it's happening, but he's pretty consistent. I think this is the part where I get a bit depressed, because at the end, he fights, and this is back to the accents thing. He fights a guy that is, this guy is, so it's one of the last people to protect Jeremy Irons, Josh Hutcherson, and the president. It's a guy that was brought in who had apparently, according to him, killed a beekeeper before, but only with some luck, as he had lost a leg. He had a prosthetic leg. And I don't know if this was done purposefully, but a prosthetic leg, South African. At least I think he was trying to be South African, because he had a very South African accent, but also a very not South African accent. I don't know who the actor is. I should actually go look. I think I'm going to look it up right now. But what a fucking accent. It was... That's probably the loudest I laughed in that movie is watching him speak, or hearing him speak, and his accent was all over the place. Credit to the guy. He might actually be South African. I don't know. Taylor James. British. His character's name is Lazarus. You know what? Fair enough to this guy, Taylor James, for attempting that accent. It's a difficult accent to do. Not everyone can be the Claw, or Ulysses Claw. What's his name? Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis pretty much nailed it, but this guy tried. He says brew pretty good, but it's, man, oh, that kind of took me out of it for a moment. But I will say, I do enjoy the fact that they made the final boss for Jason Statham be a South African. It seems like there is this common theme in film to reference South Africans as having strong military backgrounds, which is very funny as a South African to kind of see that be the case, knowing what my country is like. I probably shouldn't make my nationality be known, but now it is. Man, what a tough watch that was. But like I said, it's kind of nice that they give us some military credit there. I believe in Thor, the first Thor, Coulson tries to figure out where Hemsworth, Thor, is from. And then I think at one point asks him if he's South African, like South African military, which is pretty cool to get like a little bit of a nod there. But man, what a tough watch. And also, why did the guy have a prosthetic leg? Is this like a weird Oscar Pistorius thing? At least I don't remember the guy shooting through a bathroom door at any point. But man, it was a pretty good fight. Pretty good. A lot of good deaths. A lot of really good deaths, which is a concerning thing to say. And also, Charlie Puth, Josh Hutcherson's character at the end when they have a Mexican standoff. For those who don't know what a Mexican standoff, please, can people comment below that you know what a Mexican standoff is? Because I have a friend, someone quite close to me in my life, that did not know what a Mexican standoff is. To her credit, she doesn't watch a lot of movies, hence why this is not co-hosted by her. But she does not know what a Mexican standoff is, nor did her sister. And in the first movie that I do for this review, there's a Mexican standoff, which is there's minimum three people with guns, and they're all pointing it in different directions, right? So the reason it's like a Mexican standoff is because they don't know who's going to fire first, because if one person starts shooting, everyone starts shooting, and everyone's going to be dead. Mexican standoff. Anyway, comment below if you know what a Mexican standoff is. If you don't, dislike the video and shit on me, please. Anyway, so they're all pointing the guns at each other, and this guy is basically the president woman was supposed to, the female president lead, who, she seemed, it was unbeknownst to her that her son had gotten the money in the ways that he did, and she opted for telling the world the truth. The FBI director the truth, and the Beekeeper the truth. And then her son just decides to pull a gun on her. And as he does, in true Mexican standoff fashion, Beekeeper Adam Clay literally shoots from the hip and shoots him in the head, which was quite good. So I think, as you can tell, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I think in terms of the bad, I do think there was some dialogue issues that I had, which were some questionable things that were said. A lot of beekeepers, jokes that were made that felt a bit on the nose. But I feel like that was like kind of the purpose of it. I think there was some inconsistency with other characters, like the female lead, who was the daughter of the lady that was that committed suicide, where her motivation throughout the film, like her determination to solve the issue of the people that did this to her mother, was kind of fluctuating all over the place. And there was some lapses in logic, obviously, with the way people just kind of let other people get away, and suddenly people can't shoot straight. But, it is what it is. The movie is what it is. I don't know. I don't know if you want, if you wanted something more from it, maybe you're just expecting too much from the world. I kind of get why it got the Rotten Tomatoes and audience score that it did. So, in terms of my rating system, I do not believe in fixed rating systems of like a one scale from 1 to 10 or a percentage or anything, because I feel like that's a little bit too definitive. And we all know that on the internet, no opinion can be definitive, because then the only alternative is the exact opposite. And I think in the vein of keeping what is synergy between brands, and the name of the podcast being TriPod, and the pun being me trying things, I thought the rating system that I could use is like whether or not I think you should give the movie a try, and to what extent. And I will say that there will be an exclusive award given to a movie that really blows my mind, which will be the coveted TriStar rating, which is just 3 stars, just because of the joke. Oh god, that's so stupid. Anyway, that's the rating system. So I was trying to think what I would give this movie. I think if you're a middle-aged dad, give this movie a fucking try and try to watch it in cinema. You will love it. If you have a middle-aged dad or a dad that's on the older side that enjoys The Expendables, give it a try. If they enjoyed Nobody, give it a try. If they enjoyed John Wick, give it a try. I think if any of those things tickle your fancy, but you want something that doesn't take itself too serious, give this a try. I really do think so. I really do. But do I think you need to watch it in cinema? No, I'd say if there's something, this is something that you could try to watch on streaming. I think if you've got a good sound system, that would be better because action movies always work better in that setting. But I would try not to watch this on something small like your phone. I think it's worth the watch. I say give it a try. It's got my go ahead. I really had a lot of fun with this. I think it was a good movie to start off with. 4 reviews, episode 0, just something fun, you know. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that I missed that I would have wanted to touch on, but that's going to be all these reviews. I want to try and keep the podcast no longer than an hour and 30 minutes max. So, if I don't get to a bunch of things that you guys would like me to get to, I apologize. Yell at me in the comments. Leave shitty reviews. I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. But if you could, give it at least stars, Give me at least 3-star reviews. Oh, this is the stupidest thing ever. I am so unqualified to do this. And there's so much I still want to talk about this movie. And I just can't, I certainly can't just keep talking about it, but that's why I need to have a podcast where only I can talk, which is so self-serving. It's the equivalent of a cat licking their own balls, But I like the sound of my own voice. That's also a lie. I hate the sound of my own voice. I still need to edit this. I'm going to dread that. But yeah, like I said, if you're a middle-aged dad or older, give it a try. And yeah, I think that is it for the review. So now moving on to the next segment of the show, which is side tangents. I think what I want this to be is kind of like me going on a side tangent about a few other things that I am either busy watching or that I find entertaining, things that are coming up that I would recommend. I think the first of that would be I recently started watching an anime called Solo Leveling. I only watch sub, not dubbed. I'm about 5 episodes in, and I saw there was some hype behind it. If I'm not mistaken, it's the same studio, Mappa Studio, that brought out Jujutsu Kaisen, and I really like Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm not gonna lie, that might be moving up into my top 5 all-time anime. But yeah, Solo Leveling thus far is pretty good. It follows a guy that lives in a world where magic and beasts are real and are entering the real world through gates that open from a different dimension. And it's a quite, I didn't expect it to be as violent as it was, but it's pretty violent. But 5 episodes in, I must say it's pretty strong. Well, at least it's fun to watch. It's easy to watch. So, if you don't have something to watch, I would say that is something that might tickle your fancy if you like that fantasy element of it. It's also got a bit of a gaming element to it, kind of sort of online, or Dot Hack Sign, I think, is like the anime that I used to watch when I was in primary school. But yeah, pretty fun anime to watch. I think apart from that, let's see, some side tangents. Oh, UFC 300 is around the corner. I'm also an MMA fan, so I think I will most likely be watching that. I don't know if I'll do a review of that. I'll try and stick to more just pop culture and movie reviews. But hey, if anyone's watching UFC 300 next weekend, please send your predictions down below, wherever that may be. I don't know. You can send it. I'll probably post this on YouTube. You can put it in the comments there. I do need to get a Twitter handle for this. I do have an Instagram, which is, I think, at the real Stan, which is kind of like my animation platform. I will create an Instagram and a Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, account for this podcast and a YouTube channel for this podcast where you guys will be able to comment everything and share your thoughts. But I think something apart from that, UFC 300 coming out. Like I said, Monkey Man by Dev Patel is coming out, which I really want to go watch. But there's also also want to shout out an Instagram channel that I found recently, which is quite a wholesome account. I would suggest giving it a follow, which is about a young girl that essentially has a channel, 8-year-old girl, named Hannah, who suffers from ARFID, which basically means that there are certain foods that cause certain reactions to her where she cannot stand and eat certain foods, and she struggles to either digest it or get it down, I think is the gist of it. But it's quite wholesome because she goes through like a journey where she tries all these different foods, and it's quite wholesome, quite brave. It's one of those things where I think it's like protect her at all costs. I do hope this doesn't end up being something where her parents have been milking this and, using her to make money off of her. But it is quite wholesome. Her Instagram handle is my Arfid Life, one word, MYARFIDLIFE on Instagram. I think give her a follow, watch some of those videos. It's quite wholesome. And it's quite a nice thing to sometimes see in your feed. A little bit more positivity, not everything being so serious. In terms of other things, I recently watched Dune 1 and 2. I went to go watch Dune 2 in cinema. That's something I would definitely give a try in cinema. If you want to see Stan-gents, it's pretty good. I thought it was a lot better than the first one. Not gonna lie, wish I had actually started my reviews with that. But I will say that Timothée Chalamet definitely works as a desert Jesus, because he already looks malnourished enough. I always make the joke that he kind of looks like someone you'd find in a soup kitchen in the 1800s. He just looks like one of those, he looks like he can't help but say, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" You know what I mean? He just gives that vibe. But nowadays, that seems to be the type anyway. So maybe we should all starve ourselves and become pale and look malnourished. But all jokes aside, he's really good in it. I really enjoyed that film. So, give it a go if you can. Like I said, try it in cinema. But yeah, I think that's it for today's podcast. I can't think of anything else to try. I would say if there are any things that you guys think I should try, let me know. I will add the handles of the Instagram and my Twitter account and everything. I will add in the podcast description if I do ever post this podcast. But I just want to say thank you everybody for listening. Those who did, those who didn't, fuck you. But those who did, thank you. And yeah, I'll see you guys either next week or talk to you guys next week or whenever I decide to record a video again. But yeah, cheers guys. Peace out.